Hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. I hope you're all smiling and enjoying your lovely day. In this following tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys on how to automatically rig your skirts and dresses for your MMD model or PMX model, whichever you call it. And I will say that this is a remake of a previous tutorial that I do have on my channel already, but the reason why I am remaking this tutorial is so that way the demonstrations, because I am going to be making two versions of the tutorial, one for skirts and dresses and the other one for hair when it comes to automatically rigging them. And also, the demonstration will be more spoon-fed when it comes to the information. However, do keep in mind that everyone's 3D situation is different, so please make sure to apply your knowledge when it comes to following this tutorial. And also, before we get started in this tutorial, please make sure that you have knowledge when it comes to 3D rigging, weight paint, or just basic rigging in general. Since if you are very brand new to 3D, this tutorial might confuse you and it might stress you out if you have no idea what you're doing. So please make sure to go on Google and Google basic 3D rigging for Blender or just PMX Editor. And once you do your research and understand how 3D rigging works, you can come back to this tutorial and follow along. But I will try my best to spoon feed the information as much as I can. But keep in mind, apply your knowledge for every situation, whether your model is Void, Boost, or any other model, Tita, whichever. But I am going to be using my own model for this demonstration. So, first things first, when it comes to this demonstration, is that for this demonstration specifically, I'm going to be taking an existing rig, right? I'm going to remove and delete this rig, clean it out, and I'm going to show you guys how to properly clean out a skirt rig that's already existing. And then I'm going to be showing you guys how to use a PMX Editor skirt add-on, so that way we can automatically generate new ones. So let's get started. So first things first, actually, before I get started, sorry for the ramble. If you have no idea how to get started on PMX Editor, or you don't know how the UI is, or you have no idea about MMD or anything like that, in the description I do have extra tutorials that can help you get started on how to Google stuff for MMD, what are the MMD vocabulary, and the PMX Editor UI if you have no idea what the heck I'm doing. Still, just want to make sure so you don't get confused on what I'm about to start with. But let's go ahead and actually get started. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the joints and the rigid body button. And in case you don't know what rigid bodies or joints are, that's basically where your physics are at. These basically control how your physics move. The joints constrain your physics, and the rigid bodies is what forms the physics themselves. Just to put in the simplest form ever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be deleting my joints and rigid bodies. I'm going to go to the joint tab, and I'm going to go ahead, find my skirt joints, and I'm going to select them here. If you have no idea how or where to find your skirt joints are, you can always select it in a 3D view, and the PMX Editor window here will reflect on what you select in the PMX view window here. But for my case, I know where my joints are, so I have to go ahead and delete them. So let me go ahead and select here and just delete. Then I have to go to the rigid body and find my skirt rigid bodies here. Same concept as the joints. You can select the 3D view and it'll reflect on the PMX Editor view. Simple as that. Go ahead and delete the joints and rigid bodies right there. Simple, simple, simple. Now, what I'm going to then do is I'm going to also select the skirt bones and I'm going to delete them too. So on the tab here, select all of my skirt bones here, so scroll all the way up, select it, and we're going to delete them. Now, before we can actually get into the add-on, we need to edit the weight paint of the model. Now, what we'll have to do first and foremost is we need to separate the skirt alone. So for my model, I have it where my model has all the materials all separated. If your model is a single material, you might want to split the materials up or split them all into different pieces, so that way you can easily select the skirt or anything related to a skirt shape when it comes to your model. For my case, I will go ahead and hit the R button to hide everything, and I will select the materials that corresponds with the dress. If by chance your model has Japanese characters like this, and you have no idea what they're trying to say, you can either just spam click and see like what each material is by toggling the visibility. You can select your materials and select the EN to see what's the English name. But if by any chance your model does not have proper English translation, because these are not automatically generated, these are manually inputted by whoever worked on the model. Basically, you can just select a Japanese name, copy paste it, Google Translate, and see what it means. So there's various ways of seeing what they are, and just, basically hiding all the material so you can see the skirt. That's basically what we need to see. So as of right now, as you can see, my dress is the only one being shown, which is actually great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the hip bone. I can go to the bone tab and I can scroll all the way up and my hip bone will be right here. If you don't know where hip bone is, it's literally this name. Just look at the shape of the name here and see where it is on your model, because when it comes to MMD models or PMX models, they pretty much have the same skeleton bone name structure, since, we do rely on distributing MMD motions, so we have to make sure that the bone names are the same. So they should be same or at least similar for your model. If you need to understand the bone name list for MMD models, Learn MMD does have a guide on the rigging name structure for the MMD model standard. But with that being said, though, we'll select that and we'll select the W button up here, weights. So this is where we'll do our weight paint at. For Blender, there's also a weight paint option there, but for PMX Editor, it's a lot more simplified, basically. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to click on Start, and as you can see, you'll see like the vertices there, and you'll see some colors here too. What we'll have to do is we need to select 100% on the weight, and we need to take the time to weight paint everything. This is also why I usually prefer Blender for rigging, since it's a bit more of a struggle when it comes to PMX Editor when it comes to weight painting. Typically what I do if I want to weight paint this a bit faster, I'm gonna have to go ahead and hide the top part, so I do this right, and do that. What I would do is I would zoom out far away as much as I can, so that way I can have a bit more of a bigger selection when it comes to me manually weight painting everything. That's what I would do if I want to weight paint this a bit faster, but do take your time on it regardless, since weight painting is never easy and it can be a pain in the behind. Alright, and make sure to unhide the fluff for my model, so that way I can make sure I have every single corner, because sometimes even though you may think it's all weight painted, there may be like that area right there. You can see there's a black vertice right there. Some areas may still be missing, so please take your time on this. Alright, so let me just check here. And that should be good, but before I even say it's good, we'll need to test it out. So go ahead and click on Start again to disable weight paint mode, and click on the T button. And what you're going to do is you're going to test the model. So press on the bones here, and you're going to move them all around and see if there's any weight paint issues. And as you can see, for this case, there are still some things we need to do. And I know where that is, because while I was weight painting the model, you can see there's still this part right here, so we'll have to go ahead and weight paint it. So weight paint this even more, and then select transform view again and double check. Still some areas, so take your time on finding those areas and just weight painting it, making sure that there is no more issues. See? So move them all around, test it, double make sure there are no weird spots. As you can see, there's still one last small little weird spot right there, so we can zoom out and double ensure no more weight paint issues. See? Simple, simple, simple. Making sure, double check every single corner. If by chance you still experience some weight paint issues, once again, trial and error, because once again, weight paint is not easy. Even though you're just weight painting a single area in a single color, it ain't easy. But even then, the model seems to be good now. So we are ready for the auto rigging time. So what we'll need to do to get started on this, first and foremost, we need to go to Edit, Plugin, User, Skirt Plugin, automatic curved surface plugin, which is a really long name for the skirt plugin. And remember, English PMX Editor should already have this. If you installed the Japanese version of PMX Editor, I don't think the add-on is there, so you'll have to download it manually. Once again, in the description, there's a download for PMX Editor, which also has the download link for a translated version of the skirt plugin in English, so it should be there. But it should be right here in our hands. So first things first, we'll need to select PMX model since we're not doing this in PMD editor. This is PMX editor, and before we have to click on the get model, we need to go and select the vertices where we want our skirt rig to happen. So what I will do is I will go ahead and select these vertices here, and I will select it to where I originally weight painted the where I exactly weight painted my skirt at. So when I go weight paint mode, remember what ring of vertices have the 100% weight paint on it, which will be right here in my case. That's where I originally weight painted my skirt at. It might be different for you. Some people may prefer to have it lower for their case. Once again, it really just depends. But I would say experiment it. For my case though, would I go lower or upper? I would probably, just for this case, I would do it up here. Just for demonstration purposes, I'll just do it here. And I'll make sure to disable my bone selection so I don't screw up anything. Make sure to double check there are no missing vertices here. Move it around. We're good. Control Z. So we're gonna make this selection the skirt. So once we have that selection, we're gonna go click on Get Model. Give it a couple seconds. If your computer is fast. If you have a very slow computer, it may take a couple minutes, but should be fast overall. Now, what we're gonna do is make sure also as well that you have the rigid body and the bone for the lower hips. You should already have a lower hip, obviously, but if you do not have other rigid bodies, such as the hip rigid body there, if you don't have it, you'll have to make one. If you don't know how to make one, all you have to do is click on the bone, select the hip bone right here, right there, and then go and edit bone, and then you're going to select on rigid body bone tracking. Once you select that, you should be able to have a simple rigid body for the lower body. Simple as that, if you do not have one, which there are some models, especially VRM to PMX model conversions, if you're using the automatic way, they typically they don't have a hip rigid body, so make sure you add that as well. But most MMD models, like a TIDA model, should already have one, but just to make sure you are good on that. Now, once we have all that, we have to go ahead and set up the division circle, the division numbers here. So for height, I'm going to set it to number 15. For the circle, it kind of depends. If your skirt's more lower poly, you might want to leave it as 8 or maybe even lower. Typically 8 should be an okay number. For a dress like this, you might want to go for a higher number, but maybe not too high. I'm gonna go based on this one instructions that I used to follow back in the day. I'm gonna put it at 20 from this other guide that I remembered of. But of course, keep in mind, if you're like a void model, let's say you're a void model and you're trying to rig the skirt, you might want to go for a lower number like 8 or maybe 9 or 7, but it really depends on how long the skirt is, how many polygons is there, and how flowy do you want the skirt. Do you want it to be stiff or very flowy? But even then, even with a low bone count, you can still make that very flowy. It's really up to you. You might want to experiment this number and maybe attempt this multiple times on the rigging, because it really depends on what you want. So think of it very carefully. But for this demonstration, I will just put this one. Once again, the 20 is because of an old tutorial that ended up being deleted in the past. But either way, that's what I'll put. Once again, Once again, I'm gonna make sure I emphasize this. Don't follow this exact number though. This is just me because of an old knowledge. You might want to put it lower. So yeah. Now the next thing though is the names. So here on the header, this is where we could put our names. Now most people tend to leave this alone, but if you have a specific name that you want to put, let's say you want to put in English, you can name it skirt if you want. If you really want to, I can name this horizontal because that's what it says, horizontal. If you want to put English, that's you. If you want to leave it by default, you can, as long as you memorize the shape of the name, which that was Japanese for skirt. So yeah. Now, in the advanced tab, you don't have to mess with it. Sometimes messing with this might have some issues, but you know, experiment, play with it because these do have an effect on. They do have a bit of an effect on the shape of the skirt and the movement. I won't get in depth with this though. Now bone frame display. This is very important because something that every MMD needs to be aware of. We have something called the displays here, and basically this is where you register your bones. So this makes these sections. So if you go on MMD and you load your model, if you look on the time frame on the left side, that you should be able to see like the different sections on the bones. So for this one's wings, right here. This one's pom-poms, dress bow, and so on. You need to make sure you have the display frame. If by any chance you have like 200 display frames, you better clean that mess up. If you only have one single bone display frame, you might want to stretch it out a bit more, so you might want to delete some in here by pressing the X and kind of rearrange it basically. But I have mine like this, so please make sure that you organize your display frame like this. Learn MMD should have a tutorial regarding display frames if you have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. There's also one on DeviantArt too, so if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please check and Google display frames for PMX Editor. But for my case, I'm going to be putting it in here since I already have a display frame here. So we'll have to select number 16, but there's no number, so let's just select this. The other things you can leave it alone, but if you want to play with it, be my guest. But the default should be fine. Now over here, this is where we can set up our rigid bodies. Now this is not where we can be able to set up each individual rigid body. However, we can still at least make it like a general sort of setting, so it can kind of help us, you know, make it a little faster for us. So first thing first is we're going to have it where the shape will be box. If you want it to act a little bit more like spring bones, you might want to put it as sphere. But I usually put it as box because the collision is a bit more better when it comes to skirts. You can put it as capsule, but I usually don't recommend capsule for the skirts. While the box is a little bit more heavier on the skirt physics, they still, you know, the collision is better and just better with the smoothness. If you want even more smoothness, then you probably might want to go with spheres, but I'll put box. I usually put physical plus bone alignment. This is basically where while the physics are going to be, you know, moving around, there's some sort of constraint with it, so it basically prevents the physics from stretching weirdly. So please make sure to always put this option on. And as for collision groups, it really depends on your model. You can go to rigid bodies and you can see the groups. I always organize mine into groups. So 1 would be the head or any extras, 2 would be my spine, and 3 would be my arms, and so on. But once again, your model is different, so you might want to put it differently. For my case, I will put it to 4, 3, but keep in mind, this is different for your model. Do not copy exactly what I'm doing because it may differ from your model. But I'm going to go ahead and select these here. I'm going to leave number 5 alone and just going to put this. That way it won't react to any other physics. It'll still stay with the ground. Number 16 is basically the MMD floor. So I would always say keep that one unchecked always. But yeah, and then the group I'm gonna put it as number 13 for my model. But once again, it may differ. You might want to put in group 5 or something. It really depends. Keep that in mind. Do not copy every single of the collision settings for your model because it may be different for your model. Now, The next thing is we're going to, because for the 15 bone count, pretty much the names, the numbers here are pretty much almost the same, except the ones near the end, they do differ, but you might want to put this there. So um, for the movement, I'm just going to copy paste it here, and then for rotation, copy paste it there. So copy and paste it. And then I'm gonna go into you can actually adjust the vertical and horizontal joints, which you can, since typically when it comes to the horizontal vertical joints, sometimes you may want to edit them. It really depends. I usually never touch these settings though. Sometimes I may want to touch them, but honestly I would hardly ever touch these settings. For stuff like if I'm trying to keep it stiff, you might want to put some settings on it. But typically I would always try to aim for like 0, so that way I can get that full flowiness of the skirt rig, if you get what I'm trying to say. But I wouldn't touch those. But either way, with that keeping in mind, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go and select on initialize and give it a few seconds, and once the option is, once everything's all ready, then I'm going to click on anchor start point. That's what we're going to do. Give it some time. And this is where we're going to start telling PMX Editor how long and how wide, and how basically everything. This is where we're going to tell PMX Editor how to just do all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to select on joints. The joint option here, and I'm going to disable the vertices. So we're going to use these guys as our controllers to determine the shape of the skirt, basically. So I'm going to go on View tab, and I'm going to select on Multi-View mode. And this is where we are going to do all the shape. I'll probably full screen so you can see it better. Double right click, by the way, if you need to reset it. But yeah, so what I would do is I first, whoops, my bad. Make sure you disable the vertices selection so you don't screw that up. So make sure to go ahead and select your joints, and just start off with getting the general size of the skirt. Just the general size. And take your time on this, basically. But once you have your general size of the skirt rig, what you're going to then do is you're going to go row by row, and you are going to set up kind of like how wide it is per layer. You might want to do some adjusting too, depending on the skirt, how long it is, and also how short it is. So you might want to shorten it or make it longer. Really just depends on you. But make sure to not make it too close and not too far away from the skirt. Try and make it as closest to the silhouette as possible, to make sure you get the best shape as possible if you can. You don't have to copy like the entire shape of the dress, keep that in mind. Just get the general size of the skirt rig, since once you add the colliders, you're probably going to make it pretty big on your model, so just be careful with it. Once again though, there will be a way to edit the shape of the skirt, and I'll show you in a little bit on what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and raise this a little higher. I'm going to move this here, and then move this there. Like probably a little farther, like a little farther from that. But there you go, simple as that. It should basically have the silhouette of the dress there. I will probably move that a little more back. And then I'll probably lower this a little more, so that way I can get as much control as I can. It's like a Bezier curve kind of, except if you have no idea what Bezier curve is, you can Google what that means. But I'll try to explain as much as I can. In Blender, there's like these curves which you can use it to you spawn them in Blender, and you kind of control the curve to make different shapes. It's kind of like that, except you're using it to rig a skirt or whatever you want. just like that sort of concept if you're a more advanced user when it comes to Blender and stuff, or 3D. But once you have that set up there, and yes, you can also adjust. I did forget to adjust this a little more, so that way it lines up. It lines up with the top view, like that, nice and organized. Once you have that finished, you're gonna go back to the automatic, the skirt plugin basically, and just click on End Anchor Point. And you're gonna give it some time to process, and there you go. There's the skirt rig right there. Now, before we continue on, let's say for example, when we hide the joints view and we see the bones, let's say for example you want to make it where the back part here is you want to change this back part, right? Well, rather than redoing everything, click on Start Anchor Point again, and you can actually go back and edit the joints, so that way you can kind of modify the bones. And once again, think of it like a beaver curve. Think of it as a curve controller, or the pen tool in, kind of like the pen tool in Photoshop. It's basically like that. And once you have that, you're gonna just go back to the joints view, and you just select your bone, and you can make it a little farther if you want. And that way, once you do your edit, anchor endpoint, and then it'll reprocess everything. And that way, when you hide this and you do the bone, it should move a bit more, but I only did a very tiny edit. But that's just to show you, if you want to make it bigger though, or smaller, if you can screw up, but you should be fine there. Anyways though, besides that, we have a decent skirt rig, but now we have this sort of joints here. Do not leave this alone. You need to actually modify the horizontal joint size. Because I see some people would tend to not, they will just ignore the horizontal joints. No, you have to actually like edit them. So let's get out, well, you can actually keep multi-view on if you want. I'm probably gonna just keep it on actually, so I can make sure we get the right size. So we're gonna have the PMX Editor window here. And you'll have to find your skirt horizontal, which that's what we named. It should have the small little symbol as I showed earlier, in the automatic, skirt plugin. It should have shown here, like right next to the Japanese word skirt. There should be a small little symbol that should indicate skirt. But if you went ahead and just copy what I put here, you should actually see in English where it is, so that way you can go ahead, select the horizontals here, select it, and that way you can resize it. So go ahead, click on this top part with a blue circle, handle display, or the H key, and that way you can have that on, and you can just resize it. I'm gonna actually turn on, you can actually turn on the object editor here, and you can also use this to help you out, scale it easier. You can even use the control key if you want to make it slower in the movement, or the shift key to make it faster. But I typically use the control key. I never really use the shift key unless the mall's too big. And what we have to do is we need to make it where the purple, or the horizontal joints, are underneath the main joints. That's why I typically have it. It doesn't have to be that perfect though, because sometimes it may not be super perfect though, but at least have it where it's kind of like this basically, as you can see on my screen. And that way it'll keep it nice and clean and free from issues, basically. Simple as that. So, now we can get out multi-view mode, because now we have the joints ready. Simple, simple, simple. And once we have that, we can get rid of weight paint and this. So you may think now you're ready for your skirt rig. Well, not exactly. You're still not ready. So what we need to do now, I can go ahead and minimize that in case of anything, or you can close the skirt add-on window if you want. But now the next thing we have to do is we need to change our rigid body settings here, because we need to make sure that if we want better looking physics, we need to change it up. I will say also, as an extra note, for people who are using the skirt add-on, and you have the breathing add-on for MMD, which I will make a tutorial about what the heck a breathing add-on for MMD is in the future. But if you have by chance the breathing add-on on your model, you will need to make sure to set the deform value to number 2. And you also need to make sure to select all the components of your breathing. Once again, I will go over on what the heck a breathing add-on is for MMD in the future. You'll have to make sure to press on the B button to make sure that the breathing bones are at the bottom, if you have that on your model. Once again, I will cover that in the future, what the heck that thing is. But once you have that, you should be able to go into transform view, and it shouldn't act up. Because if you didn't put the deform value there and you have the breathing on, it will act up. Typically, if you have a VRM2 PMX model, like a Void model or something like that, typically you wouldn't really have it, especially since not every model has a breathing add-on, just saying. And you should be able to click on play, by the way, and you should have your physics, though, so you can test it. And yes, the bottom part was stretched like this because of your end bones. You can actually delete the end bones if you want, but then you'll have to actually go to each of the end bones right here and set an offset for it, because here, let me explain to you what an end bone is. One quick second. So let's go ahead and hide the joints. End bones, don't think of them as evil. End bones are basically what kind of controls how long a bone is. So pretty much like this. That's what the end bones are. Typically on my model, I don't really add end bones, and instead I would actually delete the end bones. This is me personally, and I would just go ahead, select here, and I would make sure they're an offset. So at the bones at the bottom, I would make it an offset, and I would put it to like -1, and I would just kind of adjust each of the bones, lengths. Because when it comes to putting MMD models into Blender, it does cause extra bones to be created, so that's why I don't put end bones. It's more of like, I mean, they're still good, but me personally, I just don't put them. But that could be you. If you want that, it's really just up to you on what you want. And you can see it looks a little bit cleaner. But the skirt does move though, but once again, it is still stiff. But I will show you guys how to smooth out the rigid bodies here. So, and also double check to make sure also your skirt joints are set to all 0, which should be, but in case for whatever reason that is not 0, make sure it's set to 0. But if you prefer more stiffer skirt, by all means you can modify, but I really don't modify the joints. So what we're gonna do is, in my description you can download the values here for the smooth physics, and I'm going to do this step by step with you. So rather than cutting the video and skipping, I'm actually going to show you step by step on this, which is going to be a bit of a pain, but we are going to do this together. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to select the first row of the skirts, which should have skirt_0. That's the first row, and just to show you guys how that looks like, as you can see, the ones in the red and green, the small little lines, that is showing the first row. That is what we are going to adjust the settings for. Typically on the first row, I tend to always put bone track on it though, so that way there's more control on the skirt, so it doesn't, screw up a lot. So just remember that. If you don't want that, like I said, it really depends on how you set up the skirt. You may want to just leave it as physics plus bone alignment. If you want a more stretchier skirt, you can put physics OP on, which is just simply physics that just stretches. But I really don't put that because I don't like a stretchy skirt, but that's really up to you. If you want to try and reenact soft buys, which keep in mind soft buys do not work on MMD at all. They work on Miku Miku moving, but yeah, no, we're not going to talk about that. But basically for the first, which I say as bone 0, in case you're confused, bone 0 is referring to the skirt row. So this is the 0 skirt row here. You would set that as 1, which we've pretty much already had that when we were working on the add-on. Now what you're going to do is you're going to select your next row, which is the bone 1. And you just have to copy paste it here. Same thing, skirt 2. we are going to copy it and paste it. Now for this case, we can actually also select bone 3, which is right here, or row 3, and we can set that as the same thing. So bone 4 and 5 would also have the same thing as well. So, and keep in mind too, this is just my recommended settings. You don't have to copy hand by hand because it may differ for what you want. You may want a stiffer one, you may want even more smoothness on your skirt. This is me just showing you guys just like a sample based on these settings, but once again, please make sure to experiment the settings yourself if you prefer a different sort of like setup with the movement, basically, if I were to put that as simple as I can. And also, by the way, I will put in some credit though. The settings here are originally from Rufus. He is an MMDer, or a previous MMDer, who made a tutorial about it, but I could not find their tutorial anymore. If I'm not sure what their social media is, but I believe you can still check them out on DeviantArt and YouTube. I don't think the name is exactly Rufus, but I'll definitely make sure, like, if I can find their name after video editing this tutorial, which somewhere on the screen, you should be able to see their name on who's the original creator of these settings. You should be able to check them out if you want to check their settings. Alright. Now, alright, so row 10 and 11. So 10 and 11, just making sure I didn't lose track. So 9 should be this, 10 should actually be this. And also, since we are now going to row 10, we have to change up the settings a little bit more. So we have to only choose 10, not 10 and 11. So 10, we'll do this. Bone 11 or row 11, we will have to set up this. And I also have to go ahead, let me go back to row 8 and let me set up the movement just so I don't forget, because I almost forgot right there. So row 8 should be right here. And make sure to set the movement to this. Just copy paste it basically. I'm just showing you guys how to copy paste these settings. Just watch what I'm doing while I'm just commentating over this. That way you can understand the full procedure on this. Like I said, take your time looking at this, and then you can attempt to do this on your model. But take your time on this. Alright. And we're gonna go on 12. We're almost done. So for 12, we will have to set up this and this, and then 0.05. Once again, copy paste. Simple, simple, simple. And then 13 will actually be ones at the bottom, and then 0.03. Now, keep in mind this is more of a 14 bone count. I did say 15, but this is more of like, once again, it even says right here, this is actually 14 rigid bodies with the chain having an end bone, and it even says Rufus setup. But if you want to add like an extra, so if you really want that actual 15th rigid body, you'll have to make sure to set up, 16 on the height number if you want, but really, just setting up like this should be fine. And once you have that, once you set up, make sure to double check to make sure you do it right. You should go to transform view, and you'll still have to do some editing. Of course, we are still not done with this, but you should have a bit more smoother settings. See, it's a lot more smoother on the movement. But of course, you'll still have to do some setting up, such as the collision. Once again, this also varies on your model. You might want to select your rigid bodies, and you might want to set the depth to like 0.15 or whichever. You'll have to like experiment and see like what works for you. Cause since each skirt rig, whether short or long, it may vary. You might want to just play around with these things. And I'm just gonna show you quickly like how I would set it up, at least for this skirt rig. But you'll have to like play with it basically. I'm not gonna go through the entire process of setting up the collision, because it really depends on your model, how big, how small it is, skirt size and all that, leg size, all that stuff. But really though, that is actually how you would automatically generate skirt rigs. Simple as that. Once again, you can always, change up things. If you don't like the things I provide here on the list here, you can definitely choose you could definitely choose, like, set up your own style, play around with things more. Like I said, I also have the 49 count version, which you can actually check those things and, kind of like mix and mash them. If you want to be more creative about your settings and stuff, but if you prefer to have something that's kind of like there for you already, you could just use the 15 one, which is much more optimized. But if you want to go more hardcore on the settings, go for the 49 one I had. One last thing before you can actually call your physics complete, you're actually supposed to select the horizontal joins right here, the one I named horizontal. You're supposed to select the horizontal joints here, the ones that are underneath the normal joints like this. You're supposed to select them, and then on the slide boxes here, you're supposed to put -1 here, 1, -1, 1, -1, 1. And in case you're wondering how I did that, press the tab key and it'll allow you to change from one box to another, like that. But that's what you were supposed to do, and that allows you to have, actually adjust your physics even more so it looks more flowy. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. It means a lot to me. If by any chance you are still confused on how to automatically rig skirt bones for your skirts or dresses, please go ahead. If you have a Discord, you can DM me at #Huico, #7158, which I should have my social video edited here. You can DM me there, and I will automatically, accept your friend request, and I can help you out with your situation, whether by screen share call. I can call you, and I can screen share my screen, you can screen share yours, and we can talk about how to fix your situation. If by any chance, you prefer a different social media as well, like Twitter, feel free to let me know that you want to DM me on Twitter, and I can gladly go ahead, as long as you provide your Twitter name, I will go ahead and DM you, and that way we can talk about your issue. You share screenshots of your issue, and that way we can situate together. And if by any chance you just want a quick answer, you can comment down your questions or concerns in the YouTube comments, and I'll gladly answer as fast as I can, since I'm always checking for new comments every day. And if you prefer email, I should have my email here as well. But basically, just let me know if you have any other issues. I will gladly try to help you as best as I can. Do keep in mind that I am going to be posting the hair version of, auto rigging a hair like a ponytail or even long hair. I'm going to explain that tutorial in the very future, probably next week. So keep in mind about that. And I will try my very best to post every Sunday for a new tutorial regarding MMD or VRM or a Blender or anything 3D related. If you have any recommendation, please comment down. Ask what you want me to make a tutorial about, and I will try my best to make that tutorial. But yeah, with that being said, so, hey, sayonara everyone. I hope to see you guys next time, okay? Bye!